क्या 26 का ये इतनी सारी क्यों खोल रखी है? ये भी काट करो। So hello everybody, good afternoon, and let us start with the today's Hindu this live analysis. But before that, let us take first the questions from the 26th of August Hindu analysis itself. The first question for prelims, and that is, consider the following statements with respect to India Smart Cities Award Contest 2022, that is ISAC 2022. First is, it is organized under the Smart Cities mission by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Second is, Indore has been adjudged the best smart city while Tamil Nadu has been chosen as the top state. First statement is correct. We have discussed this. Indore indeed has been adjudged as the best smart city for the 6th straight year, but it's not Tamil Nadu which has been chosen as the top state, but Madhya Pradesh itself. Next is, this is the 5th edition of the ISAC Awards. No, this is not 5th, but this is 4th edition. Why so? It started in, remember, 2018, then 19, then 20, and it could not took place in this 2021 because of COVID. So that's why, and now 2022. So you can see 18, 19, 20, and 22. This is the 4th edition or the 5th one. So second is wrong. Third is wrong. Last, the award for the best union territory has gone to Chandigarh. Indeed, this is correct. So first and fourth correct. So only 2 pairs are correct for this question. That is B. Option B is correct. I hope you have tried to solve it and you have marked the correct answer as well. Second question is, India has massive ambitions for clean and green future. Indeed, by focusing on clean tech for livelihoods and jobs, especially in rural areas, we can make that green future inclusive. You need to comment. The question is for 15 marks and you need to be written into 50 words. So yes, we discussed on 26th of August one of the articles on editorial itself, and that was clean technology for an inclusive and green future, inclusive green future in India. So in that article we discussed many of the things, and this was based on the initiatives which were undertaken in the hinterlands, especially in the states like, for example, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Maharashtra. So in that article, we discussed the initiatives which were undertaken at this states level. That various initiatives taken by the citizens of, in these states, of course, were somewhat in the direction of clean and green tech, you can say, fine, which would definitely help us in meeting our or achieving our net zero by 2070. Fine. So you can say that you can start your introduction again following the same structure of the answer, that is IBC. Fine. We need to follow here the same structure, that is IBC, intro, body, and conclusion. So what can be written in intro from this for this question? So you can start either on the what Prime Minister said from the ramparts of Red Fort on Independence Day. He talked about India showing the world how to combat climate change. India's experience has shown that climate action is only effective and embraced at a scale if it aligns with the developmental aspirations of millions and contributes to economic growth. So this could be an apt introduction based on this editorial for this question. Fine, 3 to 4 lines maximum. Fine. And further, you can add in this that the green economy paradigm provides an optimistic pathway to align our development and environmental outcomes. This could be additional points in your introduction. So apart from this, we can now start with the this body part of this question, and in body part you can mention the initiatives which have been in fact undertaken in the hinterlands of India, especially in the states. For example, I have already mentioned Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, and how these initiatives can be further scaled up at the at the national level, at the country level. So this silent revolution that is undergoing from Rajasthan to Nagaland and Kashmir to Tamil Nadu now needs a structural boost. Fine. Somewhat government needs to handhold the citizens in this movement. So India's rural economy that comprises somewhat 120 million farmers, 34 million micro enterprises often struggles with unreliable electricity access and a dependence on expensive and imported diesel. So here government can help them with the renewable energy sources, for example, solar parks, fine for the farmers, and therefore, so this could be the part of your body. Further, you can mention the steps that needs to be scale up. So first is leveraging certain schemes like Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. Then second scheme that we discussed is the Pradhan Mantri formalization of micro food processing enterprises, PMFME. Another scheme was related to the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So all this can be leveraged for green tech, fine, and inclusive growth in India. The second step could be enable large scale financing of clean tech solutions. So government here needs to help out or boost the investment in clean tech. And then third could be enable multi-actor partnership between technology innovators, manufacturers, distributors, service providers, financiers, and market linkage players to enable an overall ecosystem. Fine. So these are the three solutions or the way forward or the steps that needs to be scaled up with the help of the government at the center. Fine. So further in the concluding remarks, you can conclude on that we need a holistic ecosystem where distributors work with manufacturers to enable technology access at the last mile. Fine. India, you can say on a formative note, you can conclude, has a massive ambitions for clean and green future by focusing on clean tech for livelihoods and jobs, especially in rural areas. We can make that green future an inclusive one. Fine. So that's it. That's how the structure of this answer should be. Fine. If you have written like this, of course, you can give around out of 15, 6.5 marks to yourself. Fine. It is a good answer, you can say. Fine. Remember, in UPSC, you don't get more than 50% of the marks of that allotted question, allotted marks of that particular question. If you are getting 50%, means you are more than average. Okay. So rarely you get more than 50%. Now let us start with our today's Hindu editorial or Hindu discussion first. Of course, then we'll be of course moving to the editorial as well. Let us start with the first page itself. So quickly देखते हैं कि first page से क्या important है आज के लिए, and then at the end of this discussion we'll be having questions from today's analysis itself. So Manipur government plans to supply essentials to tribal district. That is a good initiative. Fine, after a long time. After that, Neeraj Chopra crowned world champion. So Neeraj Chopra ne again added a world title to his Olympic gold, recording a best throw of 88.17 meter on Sunday. Fine. And this was in a match which was going on in, you can say. So this 25-year-old stamped his mark on the final early on with his winning throw coming in the second round. Fine. So remember the throw, 88.17 meter, and he has again crowned world champion in Dalit youth murder in MP triggers political row. Okay, that important. Okay, so quickly from the city page, Delhi itself, Delhi and NCR. So जो दिल्ली से ज्वाइन करने आप लोग पढ़ लेना, अदरवाइज बाकियों के लिए ऐसा इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है. अगर कुछ खास है तो हम देख लेंगे. Okay. Okay, this is about PIL Stokes debate on inmates' right to conjugal visits. Means in 2010, he had mentioned Madras High Court remarked that conjugal visits of the spouse of a prisoner was also the right of the prison inmate. कि जो जेल में है उसका ये right है कि उसका जो spouse है वो visit कर सकता है. ठीक है. So some PIL has been filed in the Delhi High Court, and now we'll see how this is going to be decided in the court. So jo nikal ke aata hai, we'll be keeping tab on that. Apart from that, here you see the politics only. You can easily skip this, safely skip these pages, but need to have a look at it. Finally, here is your editorial page, and from editorial page This article is particularly important, and that is all about Himalayan blunders that are ravaging the this Himalayan region itself. So I hope कि टाइटल से ही आप लोग समझ गए होंगे कि किस बारे में है ये. This whole article is about, the Char Dham, this Marg Pariyojana, fine. Or even before that, they are talking about, the tragedy, the natural calamities that we are witnessing, especially in the Uttarakhand, the Himachal Pradesh, fine. Especially in the Devbhumi, that is Uttarakhand, because of what? Of course, Himachal is Devbhumi. So we are witnessing all this because of excessive, or you can say developmental projects which are actually somewhat neglecting the environmental concerns. So this is the this has been mentioned in this entire article. For example, you can see what is going on. आप देख सकते हो हिमाचल में, उत्तराखंड में क्या हो रहा है. Today, the repeated tragedies of bridges, roads, and buildings being swept by raging rivers in the hill states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh epitomize a flawed developmental paradigm institutionalized in eco-fragile region of these two states, especially in Himalayas. So there are certain examples. For example, blocked roads after landslide at Chamoli, sinking in Joshimath in Uttarakhand, road caving in Chamba in Himachal, accidents on the Char Dham roads, and deaths on all weather roads are reports that have become everyday news from Devbhumi. So here they are giving an example of road projects that has bypassed the rules, and this road project is nothing but related to the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana, which started in 2016. Fine, a massive infrastructure project of 900 kilometers of road widening to double laning with the paved shoulder design of 12-meter was implemented in the Garhwal region and a short stretch of Kumaon in Uttarakhand. So of course Char Dham, so Char Dham है कहाँ पे, स्पेशली उत्तराखंड. सो वहाँ पे ये जोड़ने के लिए, मीन्स कनेक्टिविटी के लिए एक्चुअली एक प्रपोजल आई थी. गवर्नमेंट ने चार धाम महामार्ग विकास परियोजना लेके आई सरकार, एंड 2016 में इनफैक्ट प्रोजेक्ट ये था कि वो जो रोड्स हैं, जो कनेक्टिविटी है, उस रोड्स की वाइडनिंग करनी है अप टू द 12 मीटर्स. फाइन, एंड इट वाज एक्चुअली इम्प्लीमेंटेड. बट इसकी जो लेंथ थी, ये ध्यान रखना कि 900 किलोमीटर थी, ठीक है. बट मिनिस्ट्री जो है उसके अकॉर्डिंग जो क्लियरेंस है, एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस, वो सिर्फ उसी प्रोजेक्ट को दी जा सकती है जो 100 किलोमीटर से कम की हो. बट अगर कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट 100 किलोमीटर से ज्यादा की है, इट नीड्स एक्चुअली एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस. फाइन, दैट इज मैंडेटरी. तो हुआ क्या कि इस 900 प्रोजेक्ट्स को ऑलमोस्ट 53 स्मॉल प्रोजेक्ट्स में डिवाइड कर दिया गया है. ईच वर लेस देन 100 किलोमीटर लॉन्ग, thus bypassing the environmental impact assessment requirement of the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. ठीक है, समझ रहे हो कि 900 किलोमीटर, आपको 100 किलोमीटर से ज्यादा की अगर सड़क बनानी है इन एरियाज में, तो एनवायरमेंटल क्लियरेंस जो है वो मैंडेटरी है. बट हुआ क्या कि इस 900 किलोमीटर की लेंथ की जो चार धाम परियोजना की जो सड़क बननी थी, इसको क्या किया कि 900 किलोमीटर्स को ब्रेक डाउन कर दिया इन 53 स्मॉल प्रोजेक्ट्स. ठीक है, सो ऑफ कोर्स 100 किलोमीटर से कम ही होंगे ना. अगर 53 100 ईच रखोगे तो 5300 किलोमीटर बन गया. वी आर जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट 900 किलोमीटर्स. तो ऑफ कोर्स की बहुत ज्यादा छोटे छोटे कनेक्ट जो रोड्स हैं वो ब्रेक कर दिए गए इन 53 स्मॉल प्रोजेक्ट्स in order to bypass the environmental clearance which is mandatory from the ministry side. The dense forest around Chamba, Agartala. So they are mentioning that all of this amidst the rapacious nature of the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana, only one pristine patch has been left out or remains, that is Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone. That remains out of this, means safe till now. So Bhagirathi जो है eco-sensitive zone has the only natural free flow that is left of the Ganga river and was declared a protected site in December 2012 under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. So remember Environmental Protection जो Act है हमारा, that is of 1986. हुआ क्या इसके बाद कि this stretch of approximately 100 kilometer, that is Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone की बात कर रहे हैं, this is of about 100 kilometer could not be touched by the Char Dham Mahamarg Pariyojana project without an approved zonal master plan and a detailed EIA. So to facilitate this Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana, the JMP, that is Zonal Master Plan, was given hasty approval, negating the directions of even the Supreme Court of India. The mandatory and detailed EIA, environmental impact assessment, was not done, and finally the BESZ, that is Bhagirathi and Eco-Sensitive Zone, monitoring committee's approval was overseen by most of the state officials on the committee without any discussion or suggestion. So you see, only and only they are listing out the negligence which took place on the level of, this Char Dham Mahamarg Pariyojana, which was about to connect the even BESZ as well. So you see repeated negligence on the part of the officials somewhat. तो कहते हैं thus thousands of deodar trees and kilometers of pristine mountain slopes face grave danger due to the same devastative DLPS road width, जबकि 12 मीटर इसकी विड्थ को बढ़ा कर दी गई थी. इसकी वजह से कहीं ना कहीं thousands of देवदार के trees and even kilometers of pristine mountain slopes जो थे face grave danger today, right, because of all this uprooting of trees and widening of these highways. So unanswered question, there are certain questions which are unanswered and which are actually in violations as well. So what are the questions? By widening hill roads to DLP's alignment, the Ministry of Road Transport is only contradicting its own notification, which says, however, challenges have come to the fore in adhering to these standards. DLPs can, DLPs are actually the double laning. What exactly is the DLPS? So you can see the double laning with a paved shoulder design of 12 meter actually. So paved shouldering यहाँ पे होती है so that कि emergency के लिए एक लेन अलग से, मीन्स यहाँ डबल लेन बन रही है तो बीच में प्रॉपर डिवीजन होती है, डिमार्केशन होती है, ठीक है, कि इमरजेंसी के केस में आप दूसरी लेन से निकल सकते हो, ठीक है. So all of this, I mean, this is a question. The first question is that जो notification मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोडवेज की थी उसकी ही कहीं ना कहीं रोड एंड ट्रांसपोर्ट की उसी कंट्राडिक्शन देखने को मिली हमें इस वाइडनिंग ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट में ड्यूरिंग चार धाम मार्ग परियोजना. तो इसके लिए द देन सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जो जज थे उन्होंने इनफैक्ट अ बेंच हेडेड बाय जस्टिस आर नरीमन reprimanded the ministry and directed implementation of its own notification prospectively and even retrospectively. पिछली डेट से in September 20, but the government produced the reason of national security. Eventually, a bench headed by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud in December 2021 permitted the government to do whatever it desired and no questions were asked. Fine. So even they are putting the question mark on Supreme Court as well here. After this, a review is called for as there are many unanswered questions. So there are many unanswered questions which needs to be reviewed according to the authors. And first is, why did the Defense Ministry, which wanted a 2-lane 7-meter width road in the first place, change its requirement to one of DLP's road width with 20 meter from 7 meter to 12 meter width जो थी वो बढ़ा दी गई by 5 meters. ऐसा क्यों हुआ? This is the first question. Now another question is, there are lots of questions, so you can see, why is BESZ, that is Bhagirathi Eco-Sensitive Zone Road Widening Project, being allowed without mandatory environmental impact assessment? Another question. Why was the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana project implemented with DLP's road width when its own circular suggested otherwise? कि width जो थी वो 7 से बढ़ा के 12 क्यों कर दी गई, जो कि सर्कुलर खुद सजेस्ट कर रहा था कि नहीं 7 मीटर तक हम width कर सकते ठीक रहेगा, बट उसको फर्दर बढ़ा के DLPS कैटेगरी के अंडर डाला गया जो कि स्टैंडर्ड जिसकी width होती है that is of 12 meters. Then another question is, why and when was this project changed to one of the strategic importance? सरकार को ये कब लगा कि ये स्ट्रेटेजिक प्रोजेक्ट है, फाइन, और नेशनल इंपॉर्टेंस की प्रोजेक्ट है, जिसके because of that, actually, by putting this project in strategic let us say importance, under strategic importance, or this project is meant for national this is of national importance, इस वजह से इवन कि the then Supreme Court bench ने भी go ahead दे दिया और green signal दिया इस project को. So these are another questions. Fine. So while experts have repeatedly pointed out that the Char Dham shrines of Uttarakhand are already overburdened, their carrying capacities have been increased, ignoring all scientific rationale. So चार धाम जो shrines है already overburdened है, but उनकी carrying capacity means कितने लोग visit कर सकते हैं और over the time बढ़ा दी गई है, and उत्तराखंड की सरकार ने recently ऐसा कर दिया था. In order to blindly boost the tourism sector and perhaps to justify the excessively road widening that the government is pursuing in the most vulnerable section of Himalaya. So ये बढ़ाने का जो फैसला हुआ, 2 पॉइंट्स के ऊपर जस्टिफाई कर दिया गया कि एक तो टूरिज्म बढ़ेगी इससे, एंड दूसरी चीज ये रोड वाइडनिंग की भी जरूरत पड़ेगी बिकॉज ओवरऑल जो कैपेसिटी है वो बढ़ानी पड़ेगी. ठीक है. So, however, after the recent warning signals by Mother Nature, the state governments of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh proposes a reassessment of carrying capacity. The Supreme Court too is setting a committee for the same, but the larger question is whether the recommendations will be implemented or not. Because in future we have seen many of the recommendations have not yet been implemented. So now, saving the Gangotri need for regulation. Solution क्या है? We need more of regulations. One of the most challenging issues for the Ganga's rejuvenation is conservation of the Gangotri glacier. ठीक है, क्योंकि गंगोत्री ग्लेशियर ओवर द टाइम हमें देखा है कि मेल्टिंग बहुत फास्ट लेवल पे हो रही है, बहुत ही स्पीडली मेल्टिंग हो रही है यहाँ पे, which is also the fastest receding glacier. With an increase in vehicular movement and episodes of forest fires, black carbon deposits, carbon plus soot, black carbon, are rising on the glacier, escalating its melting. Because black जो carbon होती है, remember, which is not just carbon but even including the soot as well. So उसकी एब्जॉर्बिंग पावर बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाती है. ठीक है. सो अल्टीमेटली होता क्या है कि बिकॉज ऑफ दिस समवॉट इट लीड्स रिजल्ट्स इन एक्सेसिव हीटिंग, एंड उस वजह से क्या होता है ग्लेशियर्स और ज़्यादा मेल्ट करती है. ठीक है, विद राइजिंग टेम्परेचर. सो अनदर स्टैंडिंग कमिटी रिपोर्ट ऑफ मार्च 2023 ऑन वाटर रिसोर्सेज सेज black carbon absorbs more light and emits infrared radiation that increases the temperature. Therefore, an increase in black carbon in the high Himalaya contributes to the faster melting of glaciers. Fine. So this is what and even they are saying, the author saying that imagine the heating rod like effect of a 12-meter wide tarred road in the vicinity of this glacier. So black tarred road, of course. तो जब आप 12 मीटर की वाइडनिंग कर रहे हो तो ऑफ कोर्स उसकी वजह से भी हीटिंग होगी, जो टार्ड यूज होती है, ब्लैक टार्ड एंड ऑल. तो दे आर सेइंग कि इवन इसकी वजह से भी हमें ग्लेशियर्स की मेल्टिंग देखने को मिल सकती है. Grid outstripping need, along with manipulative political, bureaucratic and real estate lobbies, is destroying the Himalayan forests and rivers and lives of local inhabitants. Fine. So in the persistent debate of environment versus development of the hills, there is a very simple solution to all the chronic and acute problems. And what is the solution? That is more of regulation. Fine. Further, if reducing a few meters of road width helps ensure the conservation of the only pristine stretch of Ganga and protection of the Himalayas, then we must make sincere efforts to amend the plan. Means जो width 12 मीटर की है उसको कम करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. We live in times of the critical and unpredictable impact of climate change, events which call for prevention and conservation. Most importantly, no development can be sustained if it ends up destroying the main lifeline for millions of people and future generations, that is natural environment itself, that is Himalayas. Okay, so a very good piece of article, though written in a negative tone mostly, but of course highlighting the somewhat the reality of what has been done by the, you can say, the policy makers actually overlooked the important things which must have been kept in mind while coming up with such projects. So of course governance perspective से ये important article है. The next is importance of states in space missions. तो यहाँ पे states मतलब ध्यान रखना राज्य नहीं है, states मतलब country. जैसे हम macro level पे whenever talk in talk in international sense, even in constitution, so at a time we simultaneously use state with country. ठीक है. So here we are more or less concerned with the country itself or nation itself or government, you can say. So August 23, all you know, this has been the historic day for when our Chandrayaan 3 mission actually made successful landing lander, of course, Vikram made successful landing on the near side of the south pole of moon, right? Not exactly on the south pole. So, and we have become only the fourth country in line after Russia, US, and China to to have landed on the south pole of moon. Not south pole, but to accomplish this, of course, successful achievement that we have landed on the moon, right? South pole पे करने वाले हम पहले हैं, not south pole exactly, but the near south pole, right? It is a testament to the remarkable ingenuity of Indian scientists that this feat was carried out at relatively low cost. Yes, तो एक बड़ी ही चर्चा में रही है न्यूज़ में, अगर आप लोगों ने देखा होगा कि ये इसकी जो कॉस्ट थी, जो बजट था इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट का, that was somewhere around 615 crores, which was lesser than the Interstellar Hollywood movie जो है, ठीक है, जस्ट 615 करोड़ की बजट थी, ठीक है. तो एक बहुत ही अच्छी एनालिसिस ये कर रहे हैं. ही इज सेइंग कि 3 ऑफ दिस 4 कंट्रीज जो हैं, दैट इज यूएस, रशिया, चाइना एंड इंडिया, इसमें से 3 कंट्रीज ऐसी हैं दैट हैव बीन लेट इंडस्ट्रियलाइजर्स with only one developed nation, that is US, among them. This throws up interesting questions. What factors allowed for resource-constrained economies to pull off ambitious programs? Fine. इसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में एक और चीज जो इम्पोर्टेंट है वो ये कि अगर आप लोगों ने देखा होगा, थोड़ा सा एक वायरल हो रहा था आनंद महिंद्रा जी का और ट्विटर पे रिप्लाई जो इन्होंने दिया था बीबीसी को. बीबीसी ने ये कहा था कि सपोज इंडिया को डेवलपमेंट जो है या पॉवर्टी ऑलरेडी इतनी है उस पर फोकस करना चाहिए, ना कि सच काइंड ऑफ मून मिशंस. तो कहीं ना कहीं देखोगे तो काफी हद तक ये चीजें उससे रिलेट होती है, ठीक है. What lessons do they hold for our ability to combat challenges? Do such programs represent a diversion of resources and attention from the pressing needs of development? So this is exactly what, in another sense, indirectly, by using the term poverty and all, BBC actually put the questions over this mission. So very well, I mean, you can say master reply by Anand Mahindra ji. Fine. वो मिल सकता है सोशल मीडिया में, काफी वायरल हुआ था. तो इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर्स क्या ऐसे फैक्टर्स हैं जो कि डेवलपमेंटल वर्सेस जो बेसिक डेवलपमेंटल, या आप देखोगे कि वी ऑल, आई मीन द 3 कंट्रीज आर डेवलपिंग वंस अपार्ट फ्रॉम यूएस अमंग्स द 4, बट फिर भी समवॉट ऐसा क्या है कि हम स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं डोमेस्टिकली फ्रंट पे, लेट अस से पॉवर्टी हर चीज है, बट स्टिल वी आर डूइंग वंडरफुल ऑन दिस फ्रंट्स स्पेशली. सो व्हाट आर दीज फैक्टर्स? By some estimates, the USSR was 50 to 60% size of the US economy in the 1962, especially when it landed the first spacecraft Luna 9 on the moon. According to World Bank data, first time Soviet Union ने remember land कराया था Luna 9 को moon पे, even before US. According to World Bank data, when measured in purchasing power parity terms, China's per capita income was around 22% that of US in 2013, when the time when it made the moon landing. Fine. In contrast, India's per capita अगर देखें तो हम 2022 में it was only 10.9% that of the US, means 11%. So China का 2013 में जो per capita income था that was 22% of the US actually of the US, but India की जो 2022 में जब ये प्रोजेक्ट एक्चुअली सारा कुछ हुआ, बट फाइनल लैंडिंग अभी 23 में हुई है. सो 2022 के बात करें अकॉर्डिंग टू वर्ल्ड बैंक, आवर पीसीआई वाज जस्ट 11%, अप्रोक्सीमेटली 10.9 एग्जैक्टली ऑफ यूएस. सो क्लियरली अ रिलेटिव शॉर्टफॉल इन रिसोर्सेज डज नॉट ऑलवेज पोज अ कंस्ट्रेंट इन अचीविंग एम्बिशियस साइंटिफिक आउटकम्स. So this is clear cut, shown that a relative shortfall in resources कि इंडिया ने 615 करोड़ में अपने मून मिशन को सक्सेसफुली लैंड करा दिया है साउथ पोल पे. एंड आज हम इन तीनों देश के साथ खड़े हैं, जहां पे कंपेयर करें तो हम कहीं ना कहीं पर कैपिटा इनकम जो हमारी है यूएस के मुकाबले सिर्फ 11% है, ठीक है. सो दिस इज कंक्लूजन, यू कैन से दैट अ रिलेटिव शॉर्टफॉल इन रिसोर्स डज नॉट ऑलवेज पोज अ कंस्ट्रेंट इन अचीविंग एम्बिशियस एंड साइंटिफिक आउटकम्स. नाउ one clue could perhaps lie in human resource. So हुआ क्या कि post independence and post human resource, China, India and US जो है, अब India, China and US are the world's most populous nations and have been since the 1970s. Russia ranked in top 4 in the 1970s. China, Russia and India laid a lot of importance on science and technology in their post-war, post-colonial development trajectory. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आज ही हमने कुछ किया सक्सेसफुल हो गया. ओवर द टाइम, स्पेशली पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस, अगर हम अपने देश की बात करें तो कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट्स के ध्यान जो है वो इस चीज पे, ह्यूमन रिसोर्स स्पेशली इन द फील्ड ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी में इन्वेस्टमेंट पे काफी रहा है हद तक. So their current successes are the results of those initial investments. Fine. China, for instance, filed the most patents in the world in 2019. So these are all actually based on the previous investments and not these are the results of today's investment, you can say. So this is how actually we get the dividends for far-sighted investments. However, the success of the UAE space program downplayed the importance of even population. The UAE is richer in per capita terms than the US, remember, because जो population है UAE की, that is just 9 million, fine, means 90 lakhs only in 2023. In 2020, with the help of Japan, the UAE launched the HOPE probe that entered Martian orbit in 2021. So UAE is the 5th country which has actually sent its probe or mission on moon, making the 5th country after Russia, US, China and India to achieve this feat. This is a remarkable and achievement considering that the UAE Space Agency was only inaugurated in 2014. Right? 2014 में inauguration होती है and 2020 में with help of Japan, especially in 2021, means just after 7 years, UAE lands its first mission in Martian orbit. So perhaps the most important factor यहाँ पे जो emerge होता है, that is the role of the state according to the author. In 2022, the head of the Emirates Mars mission, that is UAE, Omran Sharif, stressed the importance of the triple helix model. Now what this triple helix model mean? So triple helix model में 3 players हैं basically, the government at the center, then private sector and academics working together. Government, that is a state, you can say, private sector and academics working together and not in silos to achieve objectives. Okay? So an active and capable state as opposed to intrusive and domineering one can help establish frameworks and procedures that overcome financial constraints and enable harnessing of important resource like skilled workers. So here the author is underlining or underscoring the importance of the role of the state in such missions actually. Okay? Now a question often raised is whether developing economies with problems such as poverty can afford the diversion of valuable resources to such ambitious programs like landing on moon or such missions. So one problem with such objection is that it is only directed at developing economies, as though developed nations have no internal problems to speak of. ठीक है, बिल्कुल सही बात है कि बीबीसी ने अगर क्वेश्चन रेज किया इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, अगर हम देखें तो इंडिया को अपनी हंगर एंड पॉवर्टी पे फोकस करना चाहिए, एलिमिनेट करने पे, ना कि इस पे फाइन खर्चा करना चाहिए. सो ऑफ कोर्स सम वाज दिस क्वेश्चन वाज डायरेक्टेड इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट ओनली. But in the documentary Summer of Soul, African American participants, okay, not that important. So हुआ क्या था, there was a documentary called Summer of Soul. African American participants at a music festival in 1969 held at Harlem, New York, expressed their opposition to even Neil Armstrong historic moon landing. ठीक है, so opposition होती रहती है, जिसने करना वो करेगा. The question of whether resources directed to space programs are diversion from pressing developmental needs, however, is a valid one. ठीक है, कुछ हद तक ठीक बात है कि हम पैसा डाइवर्ट करके कहीं और लगा रहे हैं, हम अपने डेवलपमेंटल नीड्स पर लगा सकते थे. But as an answer, one can uphold the importance of these programs in material and scientific terms as well. The knowledge gleaned from these missions will contribute to human progress. And ISRO's demonstration of its ability to launch satellites at relatively low cost can attract business and revenues from private players as well. Fine. So somewhere we can see the dividends coming from this kind of missions. A true partnership now. So most importantly, it forces us to re-evaluate the role of the state in a market economy. Re-evaluate the role of the state. The multiple crises besetting the world indicate the inability of the private sector or the market to tackle them unaided. The dichotomy between the state and the markets, where the state is simply a referee, is no longer valid. Fine. So what is required today is true partnership between the two, that is market and state, with the active intervention of the state in order to provide the space for ingenuity to flourish. So you can see that throughout this article, what writer is trying to focus is on the re-evaluating the role of the state in such missions, or now focusing on the dichotomy between the state and the market, the role of the state in the market versus market, you can say. Therefore, more or less you can see somewhat this is, अगर इकोनॉमिक्स के सेंस में बात करें तो केनीजियन इकोनॉमिक्स, केन्स भी और केनीजियन स्कूल ने भी, स्पेशली केन्स ने स्पेशली जो इम्पोर्टेंट रोल अंडरलाइन किया था, दैट वाज द स्टेट, राइट, opposite to classical, that is non-interference role of the government. So in her book Mission Economy, the economist Mariana Mazzucato studies the role of the US government and NASA in coordinating the activities of different actors and organizations, private and public, in order to achieve the Apollo moon landings. So much of her work examines how the state can foster innovation and success in modern day economies. No doubt, social problems such as climate change and hunger are very different when compared to well-defined objectives such as landing on the moon, but our successes in space show us the roadmap for navigating concerns on Earth. बात है? So an inclusive and secular state committed to building the capacity required to ensure genuine human development is the need of the hour. Okay? So again here stressing on the role of the state, which is especially for inclusive and secular state, focusing on such developments. Next is on text and context page. We have this article related to the scholarship, the state of a scholarship for minorities especially, and this article focuses especially on the this scholarship related to the Muslim community, which are the largest population in terms of minority group in India, second after Hindus. So India is home to over 30 crore. Remember, in our country we have around almost 6 religions notified as minorities, like Sikh, Jain, Parsis, Buddhist, fine, and Muslims even, okay, Christians. So why are these scholarships for religious minorities? India is home to over 30 crore, almost 20% people from religious minority communities. These include 6 religions notified under Section 2 Clause C of the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. So we have National Commission for Minorities as well to take care of their welfare needs. Among them, Muslims make up the largest religious minority, but face challenges in various sectors. Their participation in salaried jobs is low, and many are engaged in informal sector characterized by low wages, weak social security and poor working conditions. इसको in fact Justice Rajinder Sachar committee जो थी constituted by the UPA government, remember the name of the committee, just especially we call it famously Sachar committee. Justice Rajinder Sachar जी इसके चेयरमैन थे, यूपीए गवर्नमेंट ने इसको कॉन्स्टिट्यूट किया था, ठीक है, एंड इन्होंने फाइनल अपनी जो सजेशन थी और रिकमेंडेशन थी वो पार्लियामेंट में सबमिट कर दिया था इन 2006. The Sachar committee concluded that the Muslim minority was neglected in almost all dimensions of development. ठीक है. By and large, Muslims rank somewhat above SC/STs but below Hindu, OBCs, other minorities and Hindu general in almost all indicators considered. So this was the view of the Sachar committee. So around the same time, the then UPA government led by Dr. Manmohan Singh accepted the long pending demand for Ministry of Minority Affairs in 2006, and this new ministry was actually created in the year 2006 to ensure a focused approach on issues affecting the notified minorities, especially educational empowerment, economic empowerment, infrastructure development and special needs. So you see the Ministry of Minority Affairs as a separate ministry was created in the year 2006 post recommendations of this Sachar committee. Right? So what are the welfare schemes? So हुआ क्या कि over the past 20 years central government ने कुछ implement किए roughly around 10 schemes for the minorities, fine, especially to provide educational empowerment to religious minorities, and there are certain schemes. So first is pre-matric scholarship exam. Matric means 10th. So pre-10th scholarship exam was one of the first central sector programs implemented by the Ministry of Minority Affairs. The scholarship was initially awarded to minority students from class 1 to 10th and ranged between 1,000 rupees to 10,700 for each selected candidate. Fine, under a pre-matric scholarship. But a scheme has now been discontinued for class 1 to 10th, and now this is applicable only covering class 9th and 10th in its revised form. The second scheme is the post-matric scholarship scheme, was for students of class 11th and above till PhD. Post-matric means 10th के बाद. It aimed to give minority students access to quality higher education with a scholarship ranging between 2,300 and 15,000 annually. The funds for this scheme increased from 515 crore to crore this fiscal year. तो इसकी जो फंडिंग है उसको बढ़ा दी गई है from 515 crore to almost double, you can see, more than even double. ठीक है. The merit cum means based scholarship scheme. This is a third scheme targeted professional and technical courses at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Fine. But the scholarship scheme saw a major reduction in funds in this year's budget. It was allotted just meager amount. Another central sector scheme was the Maulana Azad National Fellowship. Fine. This is the fourth scheme, you can say, for the minorities. The scheme provided financial assistance for 5 years to research scholars pursuing MPhil and PhD from institutions recognized by the UGC under scheme. So एक JRF होता है, Junior Research Fellows, received a grant of 31,000 for the first 2 years, and then they become the Senior Research Fellows. They got 35,000 per month for the remaining tenure. Fine. But this was cancelled out in 2022. Next is Padho Pradesh scheme. This is a fifth scheme launched to provide better opportunities for higher education abroad, providing an interest subsidy on education loans for overseas studies to students belonging to economically weaker section of minority communities. However, this scheme was discontinued from the year 2020 to 23. Okay? So these schemes this article is important, especially from the prelims point of view, because here we are seeing somewhere 8 to 9 schemes. These are important from the exams point of view. Fine, in one or other form you can see these schemes in your questions. Next is Begum Hazrat Mahal National Scholarship, was for meritorious girls to pursue higher secondary education. It was provided by the Maulana Azad Education Foundation. The scholarship has had 0 allocation this year. The sixth scheme. Next scheme is the Naya Savera, was a separate program launched to provide free coaching to minority students for entrance to technical and professional courses in competitive examination. This scheme was even discontinued, stating that the new education policy 2020 does not support coaching programs. So seventh scheme now discontinued. Next is the scheme for providing education to madrasas and minorities. A centrally sponsored umbrella program has a sub-scheme, the scheme for providing quality education in madrasas. So this is a SPQM is a sub-scheme under the umbrella of SPMM. Fine. So you can see this is the somewhat 8th scheme, under which recognized madrasa receives financial assistance to introduce modern subjects such as science, mathematics, social studies, Hindi and English in their curriculum. Fine. So this scheme जो है इसकी भी जो allocation है वो काफी कम कर दी गई है. So how much has the budget reduced? An analysis of latest Ministry of Minority Affairs data shows that beneficiary of the first 6 central educational schemes mentioned above, okay, out of the 8, dropped by around 7% in 3 years between 2019 and 20. कि beneficiaries ही कम हो गए हैं. The expenditure on the 6 schemes also declined by 12.5%. Fine. Apart from this, the budget allocation for the Ministry of Minority Affairs this fiscal reduced by 38% as compared to the previous year 2022-23. Next, the merit cum means scholarship for professional and technical courses, one of the few schemes that saw a rise in the number of beneficiaries between 2019, also faced funding cuts this year. हुआ क्या कि 2022 रिपोर्ट है 2022 की by the Center for Budget and Governance Accountability highlighted a declining trend in the share of the overall budget expenditure towards minorities. The CBGA found that the allocation for funds for the 2020 was not in line with the proportional representation of minorities. And एक important जो observation थी CBGA की वो ये कि most of the जो budgets allocation है वो जो खर्च किया जाता है that is in the somewhat last quarter of each financial year, which meant that the beneficiaries were receiving their scholarship only towards the end of the academic year. So why is educational aid necessary? नीति आयोग ने अपनी स्ट्रेटेजी डॉक्यूमेंट 2018 में ये कहा कि अफर्मेटिव एक्शन जो है that is the need of the art to improve the socio-economic status of religious minorities, particularly Muslims, who continue to lag behind the rest of the population in several areas. Fine. So this is the suggestion of नीति आयोग की अफर्मेटिव एक्शन होना चाहिए फॉर माइनॉरिटीज के लिए. The highest proportion of out-of-school children in the country belong to Muslim communities, followed by the Hindus. So the All India Survey on Higher Education ISRI 2020-21 conducted by the Ministry of Education revealed that Muslim students were significantly behind other communities in terms of higher education enrollment. तो इसको बढ़ाने के लिए भी जरूरी है कि इन जो स्कॉलरशिप स्कीम्स हैं स्पेशली फॉर द माइनॉरिटीज स्पेशली फॉर मुस्लिम्स वो कहीं ना कहीं उस पर ध्यान देने की जरूरत है. फर्दर what is the way forward then? Niti Aayog has suggested enhancing pre-matric, post-matric and merit cum mains scholarship as well as MANF and National Overseas Scholarship, recommending a 15% annual increase from 2019 and 20. So these are the way forward. First way forward की इन schemes की जो annual scholarship amount है उसको by 15% बढ़ा देना चाहिए. ठीक है. It also recommended, second recommendation of Niti Aayog is to increasing the number of scholarship for girls from minority communities by 10% every year. Fine. So first 4-5 schemes के लिए somewhat 15% से increase की करें and especially for minorities girls के लिए भी 10% की increment every year करने की जरूरत है in these schemes. Fine. So a good article giving you insight about the minority related scholarships and the funding issues. Okay, next is the IF holds a study to identify transport fleet requirement. Okay, that's good. So tells miscellaneous facts important from the exam point of view. Okay, Supreme Court is going to hear a plea on minimum distance needed between liquor shops and schools. ठीक है. देखते हो कि जनरली 100 मीटर के अराउंड मेरे ख्याल से 500 मीटर के अराउंड रखा जाता है ना विद स्टेट हाईवे. गवर्नमेंट इम्पोजेज रेस्ट्रिक्शंस ऑन एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ बासमती राइस. पहले गवर्नमेंट ने व्हाइट राइस पे लगाया था, नॉन बासमती राइस पे. अब सरकार ने रेस्ट्रिक्शन लगा दिया ऑन एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ बासमती राइस एज वेल. फाइन. Don't treat countries merely as market. Prime Minister tells global industry. Yes, India is of course a market for majority of them. Women have handled key roles in space programs, says Prime Minister. Yes, Rita Kuridal was the even labeled as she is labeled as the this rocket women of India, and she was the project director for in fact this mission Chandrayaan 3. Of course, highlighting the important role actually played by the women. ISRO releases graph of temperature variation of topsoil in lunar south pole. So yesterday this was released by this ISRO on the studies made by our rover. Okay, so after this successful mission, we are now focusing more or less on the Gaganyaan project and Aditya L1, upcoming projects of the ISRO. What important from the world page? तो न्यू प्रेसिडेंट बने हैं जिम्बाब्वे के एमर्सन मनांगवा एड्रेसिंग प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस स्टेट हाउस. जिम्बाब्वे की कैपिटल जो है हरारे. ठीक है. What next? Now sports. So you can see Neeraj emerges the king of the javelin. फाइन. तो इम्पोर्टेंट है, बस इतना पता होना चाहिए. That's it almost. sports page and all. So let us have a look at the questions from today's editorial itself, and then we'll be stopping here. Today's Hindu analysis itself, not just editorial. So first is, consider the following statements with respect to pre-matric scholarship scheme. It is central sponsored scheme. The scheme is implemented by the Ministry of Minority Affairs. The scheme only covers class 9 and 10th in its revised form. You need to give the correct answer here. Take it as your homework and try to solve this question. We'll be discussing the same yesterday initially. Second question is, social problems such as climate change and hunger are very different when compared to well-defined objectives such as landing on the moon. In the light of this statement, discuss the role of a state in such missions. Question is for 15 marks. You need to write the same in 250 words. Fine. So that's it from my side as far as Hindu's analysis is concerned for the day. If you have any query, you can put the same in the comment section. Until then, take care, keep revising, and please do not forget to solve these questions. Thank you.